Hey everybody, quick announcement before getting into the video, but I'm happy to announce that the Speakerhead Gaming channel now officially has channel memberships available. We currently have two different tiers available, with the first tier giving access to the channel membership badge along with some fun emotes, including any future emotes that get added. And honestly, I have a lot of emotes that I wish I could give you all right away, but YouTube is dumb and only allows for a certain amount of emotes to be given out to channel members based on the amount of members they have. So as we gain more members, I'll make sure to add more emotes. Now the second tier membership will give you access to everything that the first tier gives you, along with giving access to an exclusive Palworld X Speakerhead desktop background. I'm personally really happy with how this background turned out, and I already have it as my desktop background, so I hope you guys like it as well. But besides these perks for each tier membership, becoming a member will also give access to members only posts along with the occasional member only video and or live stream. So if you want to help support the channel along with gaining access to some exclusive perks, then you can become a channel member by clicking the join button down below or on my channel page. Thank you all so much for all the support this year. It genuinely means a lot, and with that little self promo out of the way, let's get back to the video. Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead squad, what's going on? It's your boy Speakerhead, and welcome back to another video. For those who haven't seen my other mega base videos, recently I've been rebuilding a bunch of my bases into mega bases that'll last me for the rest of my time playing Palworld. And while many of these bases are great and take care of specific needs, none of these currently contain everything in one base. So that's why for today's build, I set out to build a mega base that could comfortably contain every single structure a player would need. This includes every single type of production line, every mining site, every type of farm plot, and even a PAL expedition station. In fact, the only structure that this base doesn't contain is an oil extractor, and that's simply due to this base location not having an oil node. But if you plan on building this base at a location where there is an oil node, then I would recommend making an entire extra floor to make room on your first floor for those nodes. Also, did I mention that I decided to make this base a bit of a challenge as well by building it on a 2x2 platform? Now technically it does use some pillars to help support the structure, but besides those, this entire base is supported by 4 platforms. Is this a good way to build a base? Honestly, not really. However, I thought it'd be a fun challenge, which is why I decided to build it this way. That being said, if you didn't want your base supported by a 2x2 platform, then you could just lower all the floors by 1 and you'll be good to go. So the very last thing I want to mention before we start talking about this base is that if you enjoy any of the music you hear during this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my DMCA free music label, Speakerhead Studios. All the music on this label is completely DMCA free, so go ahead and use any of these tracks for your content creating needs. We currently have over 70 songs available with more added frequently, so if you're interested in checking that out, all the links will be in the description below. But with all that out of the way, let's actually start talking about this all-in-one mega base I built. So to start things off, let's go over the base dimensions along with where this base is located. Starting with base dimensions, not including the technical first floor since that's literally a 2x2 platform, along with that being completely optional. Each floor is going to have a 10x10 area with the corners cut off. You could honestly make this area a bit bigger if you wanted to, especially if you're building completely on the ground. However, for my base setup, that's the dimensions I decided to go with. As for the height of this structure, there are a total of 5 floors that are 3 walls high and 1 floor that is 4 walls high, which we'll go over the reason for that later in the video. But this is going to bring the total height of the main structure to 19 walls high. Now I say the height of the main structure because I also built a mega launch tower at the very top of this base that goes all the way to max build height. And honestly, I built this solely based on one comment I got on one of my base build videos that said I should make them taller, so that's exactly what I did. But to see how this launch tower works, once again you'll need to stick around later in the video to see that. Finally, for those who are curious about where this base is located, I'll put a map on screen along with the coordinates of where I built this base. So now that we've gone over the dimensions and location of this base, let's actually start going over everything I built on the inside. Alright, so here we are at my mega base, and we're on the outside first because I wanted to quickly show how everything is held up. So as you guys can see, there are plenty of pillars all bordering the outside of this structure to make sure everything is supported nice and well. And then we do have 4 pillars diagonal from the 4 platforms just to make sure we have enough structure holding up everything. Also, to kind of show it off, since it is hard to tell, these 2 are not platforms, they're roofs, so they're actually just hanging off a little bit off this lip here. But besides all of those pillars and everything, the structure is in fact supported by 4 platforms, which I am personally pretty proud of. But actually going inside now, hello Orcirk, nice to see you buddy. But in here we have a couple of plants in the corner just to decorate a little bit. But then for structures, we actually have our guild chest right here, and then we also have our pal box all right here. And then once again, if you didn't want your structure supported by a bunch of pillars and just supported by 4 platforms, you can just bring all these floors down by 1, you'll be fine. But then moving on to the rest of the base here, so up these stairs we have a nice little statue, and then we also have some plants plants in the corner just to make things nice, plus these carpets. But then right here we have a bunch of beds. As you can see, I did the stacking method to actually get these all situated like this. And I also do plan on stacking up all these beds that are on the ground right now. I was just kind of lazy, so I didn't do that yet, but they will all be stacked up just like these. And for those who are curious how I actually stack these beds, I can quickly show that off just so you guys know. So to demonstrate out here how bed stacking works, you just want to take some wooden benches, try to kind of make them somewhat lined up just to make it a little bit easier for placing the beds and everything. And then for me, for the small beds, you could probably place them a little bit close to the wall, somewhat like this. And then for the larger beds, I usually pull them out a little bit farther, so something like this, or else they'll end up hitting the walls. But then you either want a pal with handiwork in your party, or one that's working at your base, and you want one that's going to repeatedly build all these benches now that you have them all lined up. And to demonstrate that without moving, we're going to throw out this gobfin here. He's going to build that bench. And then essentially you're just going to keep building these benches on top of each other until you get a height of what you want. And from what I've found, it seems like 2 benches works well with the small beds, and then 3 benches works well with the large beds. So for example, if we built a few more benches here, so after you have your benches all set up, all you want to do is get something to stand on that can stack. I always personally like to use the wooden boxes since those always work well. And essentially you just want to build those a little bit in front of the benches here just to kind of get them all stacked up so you can place your beds. And then from here, all you have to do is take your beds and then line them up on the benches. I personally like to use the actual point of where it's not connecting to where it's connecting to the bench as my marker to kind of line all of my beds up. But then you just place your bed. Probably could have picked a bit faster of a pal for this. But essentially from here, you just want to lower yourself. And then you just want to delete 2 of these benches here. And then finally, you just want to place your next bed after that. So something like that. But essentially, you just keep repeating that process until you have a bunch of stacked beds, and all of your pals should be able to sleep in these just fine. And obviously for this example, I did miscount, so I do have my beds all floating instead of one actually on the ground. But most of the time, I will actually properly count that out, so that way I'll have all the initial beds on the ground. But that's essentially how I stacked all of my beds, and I did want to show that off since I'm sure some people are curious on how they can do it themselves. But then in this front area, we have our little monitoring stand to make sure we can assign all of our pals, along with having a little garden area with some plants on the walls and some flower beds on the sides, plus some lanterns so we can sit here and enjoy the wildlife. But then moving on to the rest of the floor here, we have our coin production line right here, along with our sphere production line right next to it. And we do have plenty of chests all around this space for whatever crafting or producing at this base. And then of course, to keep our pals' sanity all nice and good, we do have 2 high quality hot springs down here just to keep them all nice and happy. But then on this other side here, we have our regular production line along with our weapons production line. So all of our production lines are here on this first floor. But then underneath the staircase here, since you guys know that I love storing things underneath staircases, we do have our power generator right here, just one of the small ones. It does a good enough job. And then right next to our power generator, we have 26 accumulators, so plenty of power stored up for this base. Honestly, I could probably throw another row of these down, but I think 26 is enough for now. But then at the very end of this staircase, we do have our electric pylon to give that work speed boost to electricity production, which is pretty nice. And then finally, along this wall, we have our alpha and beta wave generators just to make sure all of our pals are good on work speed and sanity. And I think they all fit pretty nice down here underneath this staircase. Plus you do have a nice window if you do want to look out here as well, which I think is also pretty nice. But then moving on here, just to kind of show off the last things on this floor, we have our drafting table along with our pal gear table, both right here. I didn't really have any other spot for them, but I think they fit in nice on this first floor. We also have some of these fire nodes at every single staircase. I know only one is needed to actually get that work speed boost, but I kind of like the look of them. They look nice. And then we also have a repair bench on this other side here, just so we got a repair bench on this first floor. But then moving on, we're going to go up this staircase, and here's where we have what I am going to personally call my patent pending state-of-the-art super ultra mega crocodile elevator thing. I don't know. But for those who might not know what this is, essentially I personally use Crocodile here as an elevator. So essentially I just have a shaft right here that goes straight up, and it has little openings at every single floor. But essentially with Crocodile's partner skill, you're able to launch up and use him as a little launch pad, and when he's fully upgraded, he can launch you really high, so I'll use him as a little elevator boost. And apparently no one else does this, so that's why I'm kind of calling it my little patent pending design, because I personally like using it a lot. And you'll see I use it a lot more later on in this video and more in this mega base. But I did want to point this out right away, since we will be going over some things that are in this elevator, since I decided to do some decorating in some spots, which I will show you in a bit. But then actually onto the second floor here, this is going to be the mining floor. So we have one of each mining site. So we have the pure quartz mining site, we have the wood mining site, we have the regular stone mining site, and as you can see we have plenty of chests to store all the materials we are currently mining. But then moving on, we have our little mine cart to increase work speed for mining, so that's pretty nice to have, and it does blend in pretty well. But then for the rest of our mining sites, we have our coal mining site, we have our ore 2 mining site, and then finally we have our sulfur mining site over here. And because we are doing a lot of ore mining on this level, we do have some refrigerated crushers, one right here and also one on the other side. And then in the middle of these, we do have our gigantic furnaces, so that way we can smelt down all this ore we're actually mining, you know. And for those who are curious how I line everything up, especially when stuff is lined up in the middle of these walls, which really don't snap well, I personally like to use what I call the cone method to actually line everything up. So essentially what I mean by this is I'll take just one of these regular cones here, I'll just take one of these skinny traffic cones, but essentially all I do is I go up to a wall, I end up just kind of pulling this out so that way it's snapping, trying to just pull it out as far as I can going this way. And then essentially I'll just keep placing these and then pulling it out from here, so that way I use that cone as a snapping tool, and I'll just keep pulling this out. And it's kind of tricky sometimes, but you can actually just keep lining that up and using that as a bit of a tool to keep pulling, and then essentially line up wherever you need things lined up. So if you need to go in this way, you can go that way, and that's essentially what I do for all of my structures. So now if I ever say that I'm using the cone method to line something up, now you guys actually know that's what I end up doing. But to kind of finish off this floor, we do have 3 high quality hot springs right in the center here, just to make sure our pals are all good on sanity. And then I did put a small hot spring right here just because I did want to put a large one, but it got in the way of the staircase too much. And then finally, because it does blend in pretty well in this corner, I do have the little wood production thing right here as well, since that once again kind of works pretty well in that corner. So with everything pretty much shown off on this floor, let's start heading up to the second floor here. Now these next 2 floors are essentially my food production floors, because this first floor is going to be where I have all my crops. So as you guys can see here, we have 2 crops of potatoes, 2 crops of onion, and 2 crops of carrots right on this side here. In the middle, we do have a lot of wheat crops, just because I know that we use a lot of wheat to end up making flour. And then finally on this other side here, we have our lettuce crops, our berry crops, and our tomato crops, so everything we could possibly need. And then on top of all these crops here, as you guys probably saw at this point, we do have some skill fruit trees at both of these sides here, so that way we can grow skill fruits as well. And then once again, just for sanity and everything, we do have some low quality hot springs in this corner and in this corner. Plus we do have some chests to make sure we can have some easy storage for the skill fruits. And I know we have flower beds all around this space, but we do have some more flower beds just once again for that planting production speed. And then we also have the silo over here as well, just to take care of all that production speed needs. And since this is our food production floor, we do have some large ovens right here just to take care of that. And then to make sure we have all the flour we need for all the food we're crafting, we do have 2 mills over here as well. And from what I've been able to test, all of my pals are able to access all these structures, which is pretty nice. And if they aren't able to access them, they're able to work in place. But then moving on to the next floor here, and this is going to be kind of the second part of our food floor, because this is going to be where we have our ranches plus our pal breeding station. So on both sides we have 1 ranch and then another ranch on the other side, and then a pal box right in the middle to make sure we got easy access for storing that food. And then right in the middle we have our pal breeding station, which in here we have plenty of cake all ready to go. And then on both sides of the pal breeding station, we do have plenty of chests here to store any eggs we don't want to hatch right away. And then on top of that, we also have some large incubation stations just in case we're hatching a lot of eggs at once. And then all of that is duplicated on this side, so once again, plenty of spots for storing and hatching eggs. And most of these I just ended up snapping off the regular walls and then I just kind of pulled them out. But with a combination of this floor plus the lower floor, I should be able to craft pretty much any sort of food I could ever need. So now moving on to this next floor here, and this is honestly the one that I'm sure most people are excited about, and this is my Pal Expedition Station floor. So right here on this platform, we have our Pal Expedition Station, and I promise this platform is more than just kind of holding this up. It does have some functionality. So on our right here, we have our Pal Condenser because honestly, I don't really have any other spot to store it, and it just kind of fits nicely in this corner. But we got it here in case we need to condense any pals. But then on the other side here, we have our item retrieval machine, which this will become handy once I kind of show you what's underneath this Pal Expedition Station. But actually show you what's underneath here. This is going to be a massive storage room, which I am personally really happy about. So in this room, we have a total of 70 chests, so 35 chests on each side, and that is plenty of room for anything you could possibly ever need. So I originally built this little area right here because I didn't want this rock from the Pal Expedition Station sticking through my other floors. But after I found out I could build some stuff down here without it getting in the way of the Pal Expedition Station, I knew I wanted to make this a big storage room. And then once again, for all these chests, I ended up just using the cone method. So I just placed a cone, kind of pulled it towards the middle of each of these little connection pieces, and then I just placed the chest. But overall, with the aesthetic of the chest plus all these carpets that I placed down and the rock, I think this all looks pretty nice for a little storage room. And the reason why the item retrieval machine is right there is that way you can pull any items around your base that you're mining, whether it be any sort of ores or any sort of things you're producing on your production lines, and you can bring them up here real quick. And I personally find that super helpful because as much as I like having all those chests around my bases, I know that they're going to fill up really quick, especially when it comes to the ore ones. So having a way to bring them up to a massive storage room real quick without having to lug them up multiple flights of stairs is super helpful. But then finally in this room, I just have this nice little table here, just so you can once again kind of look out at the world with this lighting. Not the greatest for actually seeing out this glass, but you get the idea. And then for those who are curious about how this is actually being lit up right now, it's kind of hard to see, but I actually do have some lights that are in here as well. They're built on the ceiling. It's just hidden by all the rock. And then also because they are kind of hidden in here, we do have a repair bench right here. And then we also have another Pal gear station right here just because I thought it looked nice. Also, because I did mention it earlier, this is going to be the only floor that's 4 walls high compared to the rest of the floors that are 3 walls high. And the reason for that is because this extra platform here, because if I didn't have this platform, I would be able to build a Pal Expedition Station in 3 walls. But because I didn't want it sticking through the floor, that's exactly why I had to build that extra layer. So for those who did want to end up putting this little platform for their Pal Expedition Station to sit on, remember that you have to build it 4 walls high or else it won't fit. But now that we've gone over this floor, and before we actually go over that top floor, I do want to go over some things that are in the elevator shaft since I did do some decorating in there. So while building this space, I realized that underneath all these staircases here that I had a bunch of extra space that was just showing through in the elevator shaft. So instead of leaving all those areas empty, I decided to make them little dioramas. So I hope you guys enjoy these because I personally like them. So here we are at the bottom. We're going to work our way up so that way we can work our way to the very top floor. But quickly hopping up here, just kind of climbing up here quick on this first floor. Underneath this staircase, it's kind of hard to see. We do have a little work area underneath this first staircase here, just a little workstation with a bunch of benches and tables and barrels. I also did try building some stuff in between those 2 workbenches, but every time I put this glass pane here, they just got destroyed, so I just kind of gave up. But then working our way up to this next floor here, we have a nice little bar area, which I personally really like. So nothing too crazy here. We just have the little bar set up. We got the little stools, we got the little carpet, and I think it looks pretty nice overall. I might try to hop in there in the future to do a little bit more decorating, but for what I got right now, I like it. But then moving on to this last staircase here that has a little diorama in it, we have a little bedroom set up in here. So we have Mr. Snowman here living in here. Hello, little friend. But then we have a nice little couch and TV set up so you can watch TV. You also got your vending machines off in the corner as well. And then finally you have your little bed right there. You got your little books and nightstand. You got all that nice fun stuff right there, plus the little shelf on top. And once again, not a super crazy setup, but for a little diorama, I think it's pretty nice. Considering most cases you're only going to be seeing it for like half a second, I think it looks pretty good. But now that I've shown you everything in the elevator shaft, let me show you the actual final floor. Now to actually get to the top floor, we're going to use my little croak here and actually launch us up to the very top because I have a fun little surprise for us there. But then using our fully upgraded croak here, we're just going to face this way here. We're going to toss them down, launch ourselves up, and voila, we are now the bartender for the top floor. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the top floor. Let me show you around the place. So as you can see, we have a nice little bar setup right here. We got some plants all around this big tower here, which I mentioned before is our launch tower, which I'll go over in a little bit. But then getting back to the bar scene, we have some bar kegs right here, just because I thought they looked nice. A lot of you might also notice that I say things look nice all the time, and I don't really have any other way of describing things besides I think they look nice. But then we just set up some little tables here just for people to eat, because once again, I think that all looks pretty neat. And then in front of the actual elevator here, we have some carpets just to kind of wipe your feet off. As we always say, make sure to wipe your feet. And then starting from the right here and working our way around, we have our global PAL box, along with having our guild PAL box, and finally our PAL labor research laboratory, all in this one corner. And then continuing on to the right here, we have our staircase just to get up here. And then in this corner, we have our little research stations. We have some of our lower tier production stations. We have our one for food, our one for cooking ores, and then finally our medicine production station. And I don't really plan on using these. I just really wanted to fill up this area because I didn't really know what else to put here besides this station. And this is the medicine production station I'll actually be using for most of my medicine production. And then we just put a little carpet down to stand on to cushion your feet while you're working on stuff and things. And then I have this station set up so it's kind of like monitoring these PAL pods here, which just kind of got them just in case I need them. And then once again, I just used the cone method, ended up kind of pulling it out from the wall a little bit, and then I put these as close as I could to the wall. But then moving on to the middle here, this is where I consider my bedroom to be at, even though there really isn't much of a room except for this big massive one. But for my bed area, we got some chests right here just in case I want to store anything either in my hand or I just end up picking up along my journeys. Then we just have this regular antique desk here, which once again, they give us so many options to sit in chairs. Why can't we sit in this one chair that's literally connected to a desk? Come on, Palworld, let's get on it. But then next to the desk here, we kind of have my classic bed setup. So we have the nice bed here, we have the little nightstands, and then this nice little dresser with books on the very end. And then to kind of spice things up, we put on this iron shelf because I really like it, because honestly, just the speaker here, it reminds me of something. I don't exactly know what. And then finally, because it's become much more useful these days, we have an appearance station right here just in case I want to change my character at all. So next to my bed area here, we have this nice long cabinet just for decoration along with this shelf. And then we also have some vending machines here along with a little couch just to kind of add some furniture in this place. Because as you can see, it's a bit open at the moment. Which, by the way, if you guys have any suggestions on what I can do with this open area, let me know in the comments below. And then next to all this stuff here, we do have my nice little Japanese style desk setup here. We got the bonsai trees on both sides along with some lanterns, and we got the little cabinet with some plants and lanterns on top as well. And I don't know, I just think it's very comfy and cozy in this corner. Nice little spot to kind of hang out. Plus you get this nice little view of these mountains here along with the giant volcano, so I think it's a pretty nice little scenic view as well. But then moving on to this last corner here, we do have once again another staircase to get up. And then finally in this corner here, it's kind of a speakerhead classic at this point in terms of base setups, but we do have a little production area in this corner. So over here we just have a couple of desks set up with some chairs just in case you have a little meeting going on, you know, with the boys or girls. We don't judge here. And then of course we do have a lot of these lower tier workbenches over here just because, as I always say, they do look really good in a lot of base builds, so I like just having them for decoration. And then to just kind of fill things out, we ended up using a couple different types of crates. We used some of the cloth crates and then just some of the bear crates. And then we also put a couple of barrels here just to kind of fill the space, along with putting our toolbox right next to our iron workbench just because we need that work speed. And then finally, as I always like to say, to fill up space, since we don't really have that many big objects, we have the big old tube here. And honestly, I might end up stacking some more construction stuff all in this area just so that way it fills up this area a bit. But overall, compared to some of my other base builds, nothing nothing super crazy in terms of decorating, but I do think that this is pretty impressive considering it has everything you could possibly ever need at one base. But now that we've actually gone over everything on this floor, I think it's about time we actually go over this launch tower I built. So as you can see here, it's a bit hard to read, but it says launch tower, use Crocodile for best results. Then of course we got some carpets and a little statue here for the entrance just to kind of welcome you in. But essentially you come in here, and as you can see it says jump here, and the reason why you want to jump on these two platforms specifically is because every other time you land on a platform you're going to be on the opposite one. This will end up making more sense as I kind of show this launch tower off, but like I said, we're going to use Crocodile to get the best results. And to kind of show this off, we're going to launch ourselves right here. So launch number 1, and you just kind of land right here, and then you just got to do that a few more times here. So jump number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and finally 9, and then you're finally at the top here. So welcome to the top here. As you can see, welcome to the top, smile. And then if you come through this door here, which I'll mention that at every single floor there are all of these platforms so you can get in at any of these levels. But at the top here, as you can see, we are quite high up. We're very close to max build height. But then you just come up here up this staircase and welcome to the very top of the base. So going over things here in this nice roofed off area, we have our water fountain. I promise we always have one at every base we got. And then something I like to do as a little finishing touch to the water fountain is I always like to put a little lantern on top. I don't know, I think with the lantern it just gives it a little bit different aesthetic and I really like it. But then around the water fountain we do have some nice plants, benches, and lights. And electricity does actually reach all the way up here. Once again, as I've stated in the past, as long as you're within that circle vicinity, you are totally fine with everything. But we got our nice lanterns and everything, and you can just sit here and enjoy the water fountain, enjoy the beautiful view you have up here. But then over here we do have these little deer scares just because I think they look nice and you can sit down and enjoy them. And then finally you do have your nice little frog chair that you can sit down right here on the glass platforms, and I'll try to do a nice little panorama for you guys. But as you can see, you get a beautiful view of the volcano, of all the sanctuary islands, Sakurajima Island, the big tree, the nice snow areas. You just get a good view of everything on the map. And then if you want an even better view, all you have to do is simply come up to the top here, use your Crocodile buddy, which I will mention you don't have to use them for the elevator. You can use literally any sort of flying pal. I just personally like using Crocodile because I feel like everyone just kind of overlooks the little guy, so I like to give him a little love when I can. Plus his ability is actually pretty useful. But speaking of Crocodile, we're just going to quickly use him to launch up. And then just using our boots, as you can see, we get a absolutely stunning view of the map. In most cases, you're probably not going to see the map in this way, so I'm so happy I have a way that I can view this consistently because, oh my goodness, it just actually looks amazing. I know it's like not the greatest graphics from rendering distance, but it just looks incredible from up here. And the funny part is, because of render distance and everything, you can actually see all of my other bases I've built. So we got the 1 mega base right over there. That's going to be the pal breeding base. And then down here right below us is going to be the mega farm for crops and everything. And then even more to our right here, we're going to have the mega mining base, which is the most recent mega base I showed off. And then it's very hard to see, but all the way where my cursor is right now, super hard to see, but that's where my other base is gonna be. So once again, super hard to see, but kind of impressive that you're actually able to see it from this distance. And then in fact, the only bases that you're not really going to be able to see from this distance is my mega base that's all the way over there. And then also my little mining base on Fabric Island you can't really see, and that's mainly due to this big volcano being in the way, so you can't see any of Fabric Island. But honestly, that's okay, because for what you can see from this area, I'm totally fine with that. Like, come on now, look at all of this. Now, I know this launch tower is completely optional, but besides being a great way of getting a great view of the map, it's just a great way to get some height for your flying pal, so that way you don't have to waste stamina getting up to the height you need. But once again, this is completely optional, so I totally understand people not wanting to build this tower. But now that I'm all done showing you guys the beautiful views from up here, I think that's everything I needed to show you on this base, so now we're going to go over the pals that I have working at this base. I also did want to mention that as a fun little mini game, you can actually try to fall down all of these platforms and try to get to the very bottom without touching any of the other ones. So it'd be a little mini game, something like this. And there we are, we're at the bottom. Alright, and with that, now let's actually head over to our pal box. Alright, so here we are at my pal box, and using these pals here along with these pals, these are all the pals that I'd have working at this base. Now I will mention that I probably won't actually have all of these pals working at my base since I really don't need all of these pals here, but I did grab every single pal that I would use if I was using this base as my all-in-one base. But to kind of go over these pals for mining purposes, we have 5 work astagens, so I have 1 astagen for each mining site, and each of these guys are going to have the same passive skills. And honestly, just having one of these guys at each mining site is more than enough with how fast they work. But then moving down here, we have my transporting pals. So we have 6 transporting Wumpos and 6 transporting Anubises. And all these guys are maxed out in movement speed, so that way they can transport everything real quick. Now below these transport Anubises, I have my regular work Anubises. And these 4 right here are mainly going to be used for working at any of the assembly lines, since I do need some fast handiwork speed pals. And while I could probably throw a few more of these guys down if I was using this as my main base, considering I'm most likely not going to have all 4 assembly lines working at once, I think 4 at this base is totally fine for now. And then below these work Anubises, we have our ranch pals. So we got 2 work Mazzarinas, 2 work chickpeas, and 2 bee guards. And having 2 of each of these guys on a ranch would be more than enough milk, honey, and eggs than I would ever need. But then moving on to this other page here, we're going to have our plant production pals in this first row. So for taking care of all crops, we're going to have 2 work Lilians, 2 work Lulus, and 2 work Prunellias. And for those who are curious why I have these 3 pals taking care of all planting purposes, for starters, Lilian's just going to be the overall best planting pal. But then we also have some Lulus working at this base since they decrease the amount of time that it takes for crops to grow. And then finally, Prunellia will make it so crops produce more. So all 3 of these pals combined make a great work team for crops. And then below them is all of our Yormantides to take care of all sorts of watering purposes, whether that's for mills or any crops. We got these guys all taken care of. And then below our fully upgraded Yormantides, we have 4 fully upgraded Yormantide Ignises to take care of any sort of kindling purposes. I probably will end up making some work Phalarises to replace these guys eventually, since I like how they can transport as well. But for right now, I'm just sticking with my work Yormantide Ignises. And then finally, just for lumber, just because I don't have a Celestier that's fully upgraded for work purposes yet, we just got a War Sect. And honestly, I do need to make an upgraded version of this guy as well for work purposes, but I really don't need lumber that often. Then the very last pals that I have working at this base are 2 work Bastigors to take care of cooling purposes. And then finally, I have 1 fully upgraded Orcirc to take care of generating electricity, and honestly, this takes care of it fine. Plus, when he's not generating electricity, which isn't that often anyways, he can transport things, which is pretty nice. But like I've been kind of doing in some of my other videos, we're going to quickly throw down all these pals just to give you guys an idea of how all these guys actually work at this base. Alright, so we have all of our pals placed now. We currently have 45 pals at this base, so not a total 50, but we do need a couple extra slots in case we need to breed any pals. But then just kind of going over things floor by floor, as you can see, we got our Anubises getting some gold right now. See, we got a few more running in real quick. And as you can see, they're working pretty well, able to get to this assembly line no problem. And the same goes for the rest of these assembly lines here. They're able to get to them without any issues. But hopping underneath the staircase real quick, as you can see, Orcirc not right next to it, but he just bumped that generator all the way back to full. So even with the assembly lines going, it's able to stay up totally fine with electricity and everything, which is pretty nice, especially with all these accumulators. Then moving on to this next floor here, as you can see, got our Yormantide Ignises making some ingots. And as you can see, they can get to these furnaces just fine. They're just all working on these 2 right now. They will eventually get to this one, but they can get to all these just fine. And then same goes for all of these mining sites. All of our pals are able to mine them just fine, just kind of going over them. As you can see, that's mining fine. They're mining this ore just fine, as you can see, nice and quick. And then all these other ones here, as you can see, they're mining that one. They're getting that stone right here real quick. He's just taking a break. Then we got our Warsec getting wood, and then finally getting that pure quartz, and they're all able to mine that totally fine. And if for some reason they can't get to it, just use a monitoring stand and they'll be able to get to it. But then moving on to our food production floors, as you can see, all of our pals are working totally fine up here, able to get to all of our crops just fine and taking care of all of them, so they're not just kind of laying around. And then the only thing that I don't have at the moment that pals are getting are harvesting the pal fruits, and that's just because I haven't set to actually grab them. So let's actually do that real quick, and that way these guys should be able to just put them into that chest right there. Same goes for this tree over here. They're able to just put them all into this chest. Just quickly running back over to this one here to show that off. So We go in here. As you can see, ended up throwing all of our skill fruits we got in here. So we're doing diamond rain at the moment. But then just quickly hopping into this food box right here, if I can even see it with all the chaos going on. As you can see, I had this base going a little bit longer, so this isn't just from immediately putting all these guys down, but they are able to produce all these crops totally fine. But then moving on to the next floor here, and that's going to be our ranch floor. As you can see, all of our ranch pals are also working totally fine, and all their produce are able to be thrown into this pal box nice and easily, so that's nice and convenient. And then once again, we got a couple extra pal slots in case we do want to do any breeding of any pals. But then moving up here, there's not really any sort of production stuff, but once again, able to kind of get up here totally fine. If any pals need to get up here as well, they're able to get up here as well. But to do things kind of out of order, since I normally kind of show off the work production of things after I show off the actual nighttime of the base, let's quickly show off the base from an outside view, and then we'll quickly look at it from the nighttime. So quickly running outside here, we're just gonna hop on Dave real quick. Everyone say hello to Dave. As usual, he is precious and perfect in every single way. But we're just gonna quickly fly out here with Dave so you guys can see the entire building. This is in fact, besides this entire big old tower here, this is gonna be the tallest base I ever built, and as you can see, it goes pretty high up. But just kind of looking at it from this view here, this is what you're mostly gonna be seeing it as, at least from this distance here. From a far distance, all you'll be seeing is that tower, because you can literally see that from across the map. But just looking at this base from the outside view here, I think it looks pretty good. It's just kind of a glass dome, which I'm not a big fan of, but I'm hoping we get different building materials in the future so that way we can kind of start changing things up. But overall, I think it looks pretty nice. And once again, the fact that everything that you could possibly ever need is all stored in this one base is pretty awesome in my opinion. But then as usual, we're going to quickly hop on over to nighttime and we will check things out and how the base looks with all the lights and everything. Alright, so here we are at the base at nighttime, and as you can see, as I always kind of say, the lighting kind of sucks from a distance. You got to be real close for it to activate, but as usual, it looks pretty nice at night. But as I also say, you guys generally aren't going to be looking at it from this distance, so let's actually check out the lights on the inside. So starting at the first floor here, let's quickly hop off Dave here and put him away. But coming in here, so we do have a couple of lights right here, right in the middle, and then one at the staircase there. Now I don't have any on the side here, and I don't know if it's just because I have this whole base built on a 2x2 platform, but every time I build some sort of staircase and build lights over here, when I destroy the staircase, it also deconstructs the lights. So unless I'm kind of jumping and placing them, which is really annoying, I just kind of decide not to place them because all of these lights over here generate enough light. And also to kind of show it off, as you can see, the bed stacking does work for pals sleeping in them, so if you do need to kind of save some space, bed stacking is a great way of doing that. But kind of moving through the base real quick here, we don't have any sort of lighting down here, but that light that's right above the staircase does plenty of lighting. Plus, if you have a light on your belt, that works fine. But quickly moving through the rest of the base here, it's going to be the same general light setup. So once again, the light right there, right in the middle, and at the staircase. And as you can see, this is a problem with any sort of tall mega base, that you will sometimes have pals that don't make it to the beds, especially if they're placed really up high. But it is what it is. It sometimes happens. But like I was saying before about the lighting and stuff, in the middle it's totally fine. It kind of fades out at the corners. I could honestly just put some lamps or something, but overall this works fine. I really don't play through the night anyways. And for those who are curious about why I don't have nocturnal on any of my work pals, it's because I usually do sleep through the nights. I just kind of play through the nights just to kind of show off the base at night, but for the most part I'm not really playing through the night. I'm just usually sleeping through them, so that's why I don't have nocturnal on my pals. But as usual, kind of same light setup, so lights up the floors pretty well, and then going up to this floor as well, same deal and same lighting situation. Pretty nice overall once you're in the area. And then kind of blitzing through this floor here, I will show that once again with those lights in these rocks here, that it does have pretty decent lighting down here. So if you do need to store anything at night, you are able to see pretty well underneath this area. But then moving over here, We do have some lights on the corner right here and at the other staircase over there. And then around the tower, we do have some little light poles, and we do have a couple lights on the ceiling over here and over here. And to kind of show you what I mean about the lights, let's just quickly build a platform real quick. So a good example, let's just quickly build a stone staircase right here and here. And let's say I wanted to put this, I'm not really going to line it up. Let's say I just wanted a light right here. Now, if I actually go and destroy these stairs here, as you can see, my light also got destroyed. I don't know why that happens. Once again, it might be because this is all built on a 2x2 platform, but that is exactly why I don't have any lights on the sides here like most of my other bases, because for some reason it won't let me place them. But regardless of that, like I kind of said, as long as you have a light on your belt and you're in the area of most of these other lights, it should be enough lighting at nighttime. Plus, like I said, I usually sleep through the night, so honestly, I probably won't be seeing this base at night almost at all. But to just quickly show off the rest of the lighting here, let's quickly launch up in our launch tower here. And up. And here we are. And as you saw, all these floors are going to be the same when it comes to lighting. So all these have these little light posts in each corner. So it's all lit up so you know when each floor is coming up. And also, I didn't really show it off, but I do have some stairs right here. So that way it kind of angles you to launch you at this door. I'll also mention that I use the glass staircases compared to any other staircase, because these don't stick through the ceiling unlike every other one. And considering that the garden is directly above this area, I wanted to make sure I didn't have anything sticking through the floor. But then coming out to this area here, you can see the whole map at night. It's kind of hard to see at night, but you can end up seeing the entire map at night if you so choose to. But then coming up here, as you can see, all this is nicely lit up. I'll even get a little bit away so you can see the lighting without my lantern. But as you can see, it's all nicely lit up. All the lanterns that are around nicely light up this area at night. So if you want to hang out up here at night, you can. You can even sit up here in the frog chair and just kind of look out into the abyss. What's out there? But just like the general go over of the base, this is everything I have to show you for the base in terms of lighting. So without further ado, I'm going to let the other me take it from here. So with that showcase of my base all wrapped up, I hope this helped give you all some ideas on how you can design your bases in the future. But that's going to be my video showing off my all-in-one mega base. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and also leave me some of your building tips and suggestions in the comments below. Finally, once again, if you enjoyed any of the music you heard during this video or just want to support the channel in general, you can check out my DMCA free music label in the links down below. But that's all I have to say for now, so thank you all so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch all y'all in the next one. Take it easy, everybody.